I'm Sori.
And this is Metallica! What's the name of the song?
My Friend of Misery.
My Friend of Misery. Should be interesting. This is from the Black Album. It's a record I wasn't allowed to listen to. Thank you very much, Nelson. Appreciate you. For timely topical political commentary, you can hit us up at Middle America with Vin and Sori. That is a very, very active forum right now, current events considered. And you, dear listener, will not be able to know where I stand on a lot of things unless you watch that video, those videos, because it's
a lot of surprises.
Yeah, look, I'm not your typical, so I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, don't make assumptions.
So check that out. Check that out. Timely topical political commentary, Middle America with Vin and Sori. Now, what you will notice, dear listener, one of the things that's a little bit different about this channel compared to other reaction channels is that you'll notice that we do not cut up the video. Now, there's a very intrepid and brilliant reason for why most reaction channels cut up the video, and that's because, and by the way, if you're new to the channel, welcome. But the reason they cut up the video is because if you don't, then after you hit send and you send your video up to YouTube from iMovie, you get this nice little message from YouTube that says, hey, the record label found out that you took one of their songs, so what we're going to do is take our cut from the revenue, the ad revenue.
Surprise.
And the cut that you were going to make is going to go to the record label. So that's why they cut it up, because when you cut it up, that doesn't happen to you. We try to do different ways to circumvent that, and it just didn't work for our audience, because by that time we had already shot like 70 or 80 videos, and nobody liked that. So what we did is we just decided we're just going to play them straight through and not interrupt. The way we compensate for that is Patreon. $1 at the gate gets you in. You get a whole bunch of stuff. And we figured, you know, at the time we had like 20,000 subs. We figured, hey, if everybody contributes $1, then we'll be more than fine. So anyway, that's why we do Patreon. All the information is in that description below. This is My Friend of Misery from the band Metallica, which we haven't done in like 3 weeks.
Ready?
Go! Sound like stuff I like to play?
Mm-hmm. love one.
I love.
Yeah, what they did in the middle there.
Oh, with the. How did they do that?
That was I've never heard that in their music before.
Yeah, I don't know what type of effect that was. I don't know if that was an effect on a pedal or if they just added that post production. I don't know how you can. That's a pretty. Man, if you want to talk about a band that evolved, man, like you
There's
like
so much,
early Metallica, and then this stuff, like, good lord.
Yeah, it's interesting because it takes me a while to like really grasp the sound of a band. I hear a Ghost song, I know automatically it's Ghost.
Oh, I
hear,
about that,
you know what I mean, like
yeah.
Iron Maiden, I know it's Iron Maiden. Metallica, for some reason, I can't grasp the sound of it. And I remember we were at a show one time, and our buddy Russell was there, and he was like,
oh, shout out to the big homie
yeah,
Russell.
he's like, who is this? Who is this? He's like, go ahead, sorry, tell me who it is. And I was like, oh no, I have no clue. And so I just like made some guess. He was like, what? Remember he came over to you? He was
Yeah,
like, oh.
it was Metallica,
Yeah.
and it was a song like we literally had done 3 days before. Yeah, you're the worst. You're the absolute worst.
Take what you can get, whatever.
Whatever.
Okay, so this was weird lyrically to me, and I'm sure that
Really?
you're going to come out with some explanation that's going to kind of make it make sense. But
I thought the song was pretty straightforward.
no, yes, I know. That's what you always say. Okay, so the reason that I was kind of like confused is because it sounded like somebody.
Oh my gosh, you can't. It's right there. Just right there.
You have to make a person so nervous.
You overcomplicate stuff
Stop
all
yelling
the
at
time.
me. Stop yelling at
It's
me.
so hard. She'll Google something and Google will have the little preset thingamajiggies and she'll still type it in anyway. It's like, just look at the screen. It was right there.
Lord, please.
God
Okay.
almighty.
Anyway, so it sounds like somebody who is. Oh, you just stood there screaming, fearing no one was listening to you. They say the empty can rattles the most.
My brother just sent me a text. LOL. Yo, it sounded like you were trying to set up a trap for a black guy. I got you some General Tso's chicken. Haha. Alright, I'm done. Okay. I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay.
Back to our regularly scheduled program. If you know where that came from, send me an email, vinandsori@gmail.com. I'll send you a mug. Alright, go ahead.
So, but then the sound of your own voice. So it sounds like, I don't know, as it's going on, and knowing only what you've heard and you're smothered in tragedy, it sounded like someone who, like, I was talking to the kids about people that, like, wallow in self-pity and stuff like that, and it sounded like somebody who was like, oh, the world, everything's tragic. But then it said, and you're out to save the world, which a lot of times people that are all about in their feelings and stuff,
What?
they're not trying to save the world. They make everything about them.
Well, I don't think he literally means that they're literally out to save the world. I think that they're
They have opinions.
they're using their attempt to save the world. It's really just a self-aggrandizement type of situation. So,
Oh,
and I think a lot of people are like.
you insist the weight of the world should be on your shoulders?
Yeah, because then you can always be miserable.
Yeah, but is it like someone that says, you know, I was meant to be miserable, like this should happen, like
No,
something like that?
I just think that, like, I can relate lyrically to this song. Like, you know, in one of the videos that I shot in another forum, where I said, you know, I know that people have been messaging me and saying I can't talk to my pastor about this particular issue.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, trying to get me to be their pastor through the current situation that we're all in. And I said, yeah, I'm not that guy. You know, and which is growth for me, because before, when people would do that, I would take that on to myself. Like, I wouldn't come and say, I'll be there for you. Da, da, da. It's just people kind of gravitated to it, and I could just never say no to people. You know, because I always thought I was letting people down, or the other part of it was like trying to validate my existence because, you know, I was a miracle baby and they prayed for me and miraculous stuff happened and all this. So I had this narrative my entire life that that I was going to do something special and save the world and yada yada yada.
Yeah.
So anytime something like that would happen, I felt like I was letting my mom down or letting God down or whatever if I didn't, you know. But then I've learned that No, you can go in and go out. You can phase in and phase out. And if you have if you have access to help people, great. And if you don't, then you don't. And you know, and now I'm comfortable doing that. You know, but before I wasn't. So, and at the same time, you know, we were talking about this like a couple days ago. Like I was in a particular situation and my life was in shambles. And my kids were in shambles. They were on the edge. One of them was hallucinating, and like I had all this weight on me, and I was like, "Yo, I gotta get out of this. I gotta get out of this." And like, folks were like, "No, you know, we need you." Blah 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 blah. And then an opportunity afforded itself, and so I was able to, and you know, it was one of those situations where if I would have said something and fought back, I would have won, but then I would have been completely trapped in it, or just shut up and let the thing ride out. And that was my exit off the freeway. And I took the exit off the freeway. But it was one of those, and you know what? All those people that were, quote, depending on me, they're okay. Like, they didn't die, they didn't explode into a pile of ash. Like, they're okay. Like, and it was like, you know, because at the time, they were making everything sound so terminal and critical. And if I wasn't in their lives and blah, 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 blah. So I'm like, oh my God. You know, and then I'm like, well, I'd always used to be like so confused. Like, well, shouldn't they be relying on God and I could never piece it together. So it was a cool experience to be able to be like, to pull in 95% of those people I don't even talk to. Like to this moment, I won't talk to them. And, you know, they might misinterpret it as I don't like them or something like that, or I'm mad at them. Or I'm not mad at any of them. It's just some of them, you know, just the relationship is just plain over. But a lot of them, it's just the nature of our relationship, because they met me in that context, it was always a certain type of way. Oh, absolutely. And it was never gonna be anything other than that. And so I don't talk to them at all because people look at it as ghosting or whatever, and it's not that. It's just because I remember I said, I need time. And
that's literally what I was just thinking.
Go ahead.
You said, you know, I really need time to be able to take care of my family. You were just like stepping into all the divorce, the chaos of divorce and everything, and the kids really, really, really needed you. And you said, look, I'm stepping out of this situation, and I really need people to like give me space. Yeah. And even though they knew that things were dire, there were still people that didn't give you that space. They still reached out to you.
I didn't make it home before I had, you know.
How many people?
Messages on, it was 3 people.
Wow.
And then, the night where I said that, I had to like console it, dude, because he was crying his eyes out, he was angry, da-da-da-da, and he was like, and even though I had just said it, I was back in there. So, you know, a lot of people, so once I was out of that, and then, you know, we went through the phases, you know, we went through hell like the first year. I'm very happy that you were there, my God. She was nannying and all that. And then once I figured out, like, experience life without having all that weight on my shoulders, I was like, okay, I'm never going back there again. And then I became very, like, jealous to protect my time and my mental health, and I'm very, very purposeful about my mental health, down to what I'm gonna watch. So like, I'm not watching any, like to this moment I haven't seen the George Floyd video or whatever. I did watch the Brooks video, but that didn't upset me at all. I mean, it upset me in the sense of, you know, it's terrible, whatever, but you know, it's not the same as the Tamir Rice video or Philando Castile. If you want to know fully what I'm talking about, go to Middle America. But my point is, that's just an illustration.
It's a good episode.
That's just the illustration. They're all good episodes. That's just an illustration of me saying, I'm really going to protect my mental health now. You know, like I'm really going to make sure that, you know, and it's been great. It's been great, and it's been and unless you've been that type of person to be able to see the difference in how it feels, like, you have no idea. And of course, like, there's 4 or 5 people that are in my circle who, no matter what phase of life I'm in, I'm going to be there for them, period. And that's just, but that's 4 or 5 people, not 40 or 50 people.
Right.
I was talking to one of them, and they were like, I said, they were like, oh, blah, 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 and we were friends. I was like, man, we were not. Mm-hmm. I was like, why do you people keep thinking that we were like these close friends? I was like, we're never close friends. What are you talking about? And he's like, half of Lewiston thinks that, and da-da-da-da-da, which I thought was ridiculous, but you were like, yeah, that's what people thought. They thought that they were your, but you kind of have to take accountability for you're the one that created that environment. Like, those people didn't force that on you. Mm-hmm. You, because I'm talking about myself, you, because you're trying to validate your existence and your birth and your miracle baby status and all this, like, that's you. You created that environment and you allowed that to happen, and you had to, be the one that people called at 3 a.m. and
yeah, I mean,
you didn't offload that to anybody else. So that's that, and I'm not saying it like I'm down on myself. I'm just saying that that's the first step to like being free. It's like you have to admit to yourself, like, you did that, and you have to look yourself in the mirror and ask why you did that. Mm-hmm. Well, that's the only way you can grow.
I think that there's both. I think there's what you're just explaining there, but also you take a genuine interest in people. And so most people don't take a genuine interest in someone else. They take, unless they want something from the person. So a girl or a guy will take some general interest in somebody else that they're actually interested in having a relationship with, but you just took a general interest in whoever was sitting in front of you. And I think that a lot of the people that we were around were people that, according to society, is not someone that is people are not gonna take a genuine interest in these people. They have a certain, they're looked at a certain way. And so I think that when you finally meet someone who's like, you don't really talk about yourself, like, we talk on the channel, but like in actual real life and in conversation, like, most times people, when they're in conversations, they want to be sharing something about themselves. But you're not like that. You wouldn't be really sharing anything about yourself. You were asking them all these questions about them, and you got to know them, but they didn't really know who you were. You knew who they were, and I don't even think that they even pieced that together.
No. But most people...
But because you knew them so well, I think that they felt like you guys were really close, but it wasn't, like, if they could have stopped and, like, looked at the situation, it was weighted in one direction.
Yeah, and, that's a conversation I had with someone. I said, we never talked about me, we talked about you. And he said, you did that! And I said, absolutely. I'm just telling you, we were not really good friends. We were just talking about you all the time, which is great. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm not sure that other people don't like talking about other people, or the way that you said it, like, other people are not interested in other people. I do think people are very, very fascinating. They're unbelievably fascinating. Like, and I think, like, that's one of the reasons why a show like Joe Rogan is so popular. It's because he's sitting down and having very deep and meaningful conversations in long form for 2.5+ hours. And so it's like, oh, this is Neil deGrasse Tyson, but then Joe can go in there and like, now you begin to see who the guy is as a person, not just this idea machine. And so when I look at a guy like Joe Rogan, I'm like, well, if people were so self-absorbed, a show like him wouldn't be popular. I think it's more of people like Joe Rogan or me or whatever have a certain type, have kind of mastered the ability to draw people out, which most people don't know how to draw other people out. And so I think if most people knew how to engage those types of discussions, they would have more of them. I don't think it's because, even though I'm the original Sin guy, I don't think it's because people don't find other people fascinating. I think that everybody finds human beings fascinating. Again, that's the only way I can explain why Joe Rogan is so popular. So, I mean, before Joe Rogan came out, it was like, you saw the stuff, do 5-minute YouTube videos or whatever, like, that was the big thing, and then, like, I think that's another thing about the popularity of this channel to some degree is a long form way of doing it, because people like, engage, they're interested in our perspectives, and our past comes into it, and whatever, but so I just think people have a hard time of being able to talk to people and draw people out. You know, it's like it's like 2 or 3 questions and then they don't know what to do. Like you love people, you're fascinated with people, but you can't.
No, I'm not like you.
But you can't sit down and freestyle for 2 hours with a person. But it doesn't mean it's because you're selfish.
Yeah, no, I mean, but I don't find people as fascinating as you. I have agendas. Like,
you have agendas with everybody you talk to?
No, I'm saying I have agendas as in, like, I don't really want to sit down for 2 hours in just one solitary location. I want to move around. I want to go, let's go down to the park. And let's talk, but let's go down and do something.
There's nothing wrong with that either.
But you're like, you like doing other things, but when you're talking to somebody, you're like, focused right in on the person.
Well, yeah.
My mind's like, what about this? What about that?
I can tell when we talk. That's why I'll say, we talked about that before. And it's like, I'll be like, oh, sorry, we had this discussion like a week ago.
Honestly, our best conversations are for, like, when we go out, like today when we went out and we were walking and talking out in the wood. That is really, I honestly think that I have ADD. And so I think when I'm active and I'm listening, it's easier for me than when I'm just sitting there.
Sori has ADD, but when we get into a fight, Sori can remember the 4th sentence in the 2nd paragraph of an argument that we had 3 years ago, 2 weeks and 76 hours.
That's because that paragraph contains something that emotionally hurt me. And so the emotional stuff.
Right, so the stuff that hurts you, it is important to you, you can call on memory, but the important stuff to me, she forgets.
To be fair, you do put out an awful lot of information.
So, like, a lot of people I think it's one of the biggest parts of growth and self-awareness is to understand where you're causing your own misery. So, like,
yeah,
I want to be careful and not victim blame, right? Because some causes of our misery are external. Like, if you grew up with an abusive father, then your abusive father is the cause of the misery that comes from him. But I do think that, you know, because I was looking at this song, I was like, dang, this really, hey, this describes you, yada, yada, yada. And like I said, not every jot and tittle, not every single word has to describe you. Mm-hmm. But wherever you can see any part of you where the song is criticizing you, I think it's important for self-awareness to look at it and go, okay, you know? And then you go, you know, that's one of the benefits of believing in original sin is that you're flawed, and so you should expect flaws in yourself, and it's not the end of the world if you find one. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, if you start from the premise that you're flawed, then when you find something wrong with yourself, not only do you go, well, yeah, that's what I expected, but you're like, hey, I'm on the way to improvement. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I just think, like, sometimes people have a hard time with self-critique because they think it's the end of the world and that they don't believe that people can change. But, you know, I've changed and I've grown, you know, and I've had...
Me too.
I've had the channel... So I've had the... You know, the way that I was able to exit that situation really didn't change me. But looking back at how many people I was carrying, and especially when there were other people on the team...
I know. Yeah.
But how many people I was carrying, it was like, wait a second, that's completely dysfunctional. And then, you know, to be able to pull back completely and go, okay, well, how much do I do that with Sori? Because, like, you know, as your husband, like, I believe that a husband's supposed to carry the heaviest weight emotionally, physically, financially. Sorry, Peter. But at the same time, I'm not God. Mm-hmm. So some of it is like, yeah, sweetheart, I'm sorry, but, you know, I'll leave you to God. I won't even tell you. I'm not even going to say, like, I'm going to leave you to God in that situation. Because it's more for myself. You know, it's not for me to tell you that I'm doing that. You know what I mean? Plus, you know, if it's in the heat of battle, people are going to interpret that a certain way. Mm-hmm. You know, like, I used to say to people, all right, man, grace and peace. Mm-hmm. And the reason that I would say that is so that I could remember, hey, this guy is a Christian, and no matter what happens in a few short years, we're all going to be at the table together with Pops, and we're going to be okay. So I used to say that to people in the heat of battle. That got turned into something horrible. You say that when you don't want to... It's like, oh, okay, there's nothing I can do. So, like, you know... So even with, like, me and you, there's so many times this guy's like, no, you don't need to carry that. That's her. Or that's me and her. And I go, okay. And then I'm able to, but in my other relationship, like, I had to carry everything. You know what I mean? Like, everything. And
Do you think that you had to, or do you think it's that you hadn't reached that point of maturity to say, okay, that's a her and God thing?
Well, in that particular, see, it's different with you. Like with you, it's kind of like the standard, hey, here's a damsel in distress. Whereas with the other person, everything was always a 5-alarm fire. And there's suicidal ideation in the family, and these are not people who talk about it. These are people who end up dead. They die in her family. So it was more like a medical emergency. It's almost like even impossible to compare me and you to me and her, because again, with her it was like a 5-alarm fire all the time, and there was never any chill ever. Whereas, you know, with you, it's like, you know, why living in distress, and it's not an emergency, you know, it's more, and you know, with you, me and you, it was different too, because I didn't know how to like relate to a problem without it being such an emergency. Like people have no idea, like I tell you, like I'd be driving home from work with the other one, and if I saw a fire truck go by, I was convinced that something had happened. And I was more surprised that it wasn't us than I would be if it was us.
Wow.
And that's not an exaggeration. I'm not being funny. Like, that's how we live. Because that's how, you know, borderline personality disorder is no joke. You just say it that way. It's no joke. So I didn't even know, like, how to relate to you, you know, as far as like just regular problems that couples would have, and in arguments or fights or whatever. And you know, because I was on 15 all the time with the other one, and then so I had to kind of like slow down and figure it out. And then also on top of that, I had to say, yeah, I mean, you know, God was like, no, you know, you don't need to, she'll be fine. And, you know, I'd be like, well, I don't know. She doesn't look. And he's like, yeah, and she's got to go through it. And so just back off and go do something. And I'd say, okay, go do something. Now, it would probably have been helpful if I would circle back to you and said, you know, I was praying about this, and this is what I got from the Lord, so that explains X, Y, and Z. That probably would have been helpful to you.
It would have been, because there was times where there would be like some big thing, and I would be like, Lord, please, like, can you just speak to him on this issue? And so apparently he was, but you just weren't telling me. Once in a while you did.
Well, I mean, we'll talk about it off camera. I don't know which issue you're talking about, because there were lots of issues. Like, what are you talking about? Like,
I can't tell you which ones. I just know I really don't know which ones. It would just be like some of them, like after, like we would, you know, because there are some times where I feel like I'm like dead right on something, but you always sound dead right, because I feel like that you could argue that the sky was purple. I've said this to you before, and I would still get twisted up in the argument because you're very good at lining stuff up. So sometimes I'm like, well, I can't argue it with you, and I can't tell you dates or times or anything else, but I really think that you're wrong. And so I kind of stick with my thought on that you're wrong. And you think that you're right, obviously, because you've got thoughts in your head or on it or whatever. And so sometimes I'm just like, you know, sometimes I'll be like, Lord, am I wrong on this, or is he wrong on this? And if he's wrong on this, you need to show him, because I can't convince him.
well, yeah, and those are different from what I was dealing with. You know, you'd be sad or something like that, and you know, I'd want to rescue you, and the Lord would be like, no, leave her. I'm like, okay. And that happened a lot at the beginning, and I think now I look back at it, I think that was very, very important, because on the one, because it's trickier with a husband and wife relationship, because like, yeah, no, everybody would say, of course you're not out to save the world. I think most dudes, Peter accepted, would say, well, I mean, yeah, your wife, obviously, you save her a bunch of times, right? And so, but I think if I didn't have those moments where God was like, no, leave her alone, then it would have created a really unhealthy codependency on us. So, you know, so that was kind of and I think the fights actually were important too, because you know, you needed to be disillusioned a little bit, because I think you had some sort of ideal, and I think you had some ideal about what would happen, you know, if we got married or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I'm a more of like a foot to the ground type of person in those situations, and being like, that's not going to change much, you know, like, you know, Johan's still going to be a destructive bastard when we move to the new house. So, I mean, it's just, you know, so it was one of those things where I had to really sit back and listen and say, and God was like, look, of all the human beings on the planet, she's the one that you make sure she's good above everybody else times a million combined, right? I go, yep. And he's like, however, you're not God. And if you disappeared tomorrow, she'd be okay. Okay, I'm good. So that to me is like, you know, it's the balance. Mm-hmm. It's the balance. And you don't like it. I can tell you don't like it. But I did a lot of praying about it.
Well, it depends.
It probably would have been better if I would have told you I did a lot of praying about it.
But yeah, that would have been nice.
You know what's weird? Like, I don't tell people that stuff. Like, when I'm in the middle of, like, really trying to figure something out with God, like, I generally don't say a word to people. I only talk about it after. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if that's ever going to change. Go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I mean, I think it would have been helpful to know, but at the same time, I don't know. I would have not wanted... I saw that thing that said Dave Chappelle come up, and then I got distracted thinking about his jokes. I do think that, like, it would have been cool to know that, but at the same time, I think part of maybe the growth has to be that you don't know that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if God wanted me to tell you, he'd tell me. And he never told me, so that means he didn't want you to know. You know, it's like, you know. So, you know, so that growth has been cool. You know, it's like I don't have to justify myself anymore. I don't have to justify my existence anymore. I did everything that, you know, I did everything. I've lived a couple lifetimes. Mm-hmm. It's like I said, when I write the book, I'm going to use a pseudonym. Nobody's going to believe that it's real. I'm going to leave out the YouTube chapter, though, because then people will figure it out. I'm going to leave that out. But I'll probably have to come up with some, like, you know, I went deep sea diving and found a pearl or something like that to you know, try to make an analogy for what life is like being a YouTuber. But, yeah, man, like, I'm very, very happy about where, and like I said, you know, I still believe that, like, as a man, that you're supposed to carry the heaviest weight, and you're the husband and all of that, and I get all that. The Bible's pretty clear on that. But I don't have to carry people, anybody across the finish line, including you. You know, like, you know, if you're stumbling somewhere, like I'll do my best to get you linked up to Jesus, and he'll carry us both. I'm not carrying anybody. Let that be a lesson to you. And I don't know how other people do it in other, you know, systems of belief or whatever. You know, and I'm not mad at anybody for different systems of belief, but that's just, you know, all the thoughts that were going through my mind as I was listening to this song and looking back at my life and things like that, and being like, it's encouraging to see where you've grown. And that's why, you know, I say it all the time, like, don't be afraid to look at the flaws in your being, or don't be afraid to, you know, especially with Christianity, you've got a pretty easy template there. You suck. Jesus doesn't. He died to pay for your suck. You know what I mean? Like, so you can't lose. So just look at yourself in all your horrors, and then you'd be a better person.
I feel like I'm slowly creeping forward in it, like when you tell a kid to go do something they don't want to do and they walk ridiculously slow.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm doing that. I'm creeping forward in it, and, you know, trying to look at my own self and my flaws and my...
I just think a lot of people are afraid to look at any of their own flaws, and are afraid to think that a song like this could ever be about them in any way, because the person is not portrayed very well and all the rest of it. And it's like, hey, you know, like, I mean, Hetfield, he went to rehab again recently. Like, it's all about self-improvement and evolving.
Yep.
And if you've never found something in yourself that needs to change, then mean you're dying. Like, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Oh, yeah. And, like, I was reading somebody's post today, and they were like, I'm never going to find myself in a relationship because every time I date these girls, they always have something negative to say about me. And, like, it was, like, this entire post was all about how bad other people were, and not a single recognition of any flaws that they may have. You know, they just don't want to accept me for who I am. That's who I am. And you just want to, it's like, well, you know, it takes two. You can't just blame every busted up relationship on the other guy.
I love when people say accept me for who I am. Like, that's code word for I don't have to change shit.
Yeah.
That's what the other one used to say all the time. And I'd be like, no! I don't accept that about you. And neither should you. And now we're divorced, so what can you do? Much love to the big homie, though. Like, I have no bitterness in my heart towards you at all. I think they know that. Alright, what do you give the song?
It's a 10.
The musicianship here was crazy.
Yep.
I loved the musicianship in this song. Lyrically, hey, it forced a lot of internal dialogue within myself as I was watching it. So I can't really, like, the lyrics, they're not like Danny Filth level complex.
I'm going for what it sounded like.
But it did the job. You know what I mean? So what did you give it?
I give it a 10 because to me this was I really liked what they did musically with it, and it was different than a lot of their other stuff. And so I just, for how unique they are and able to kind of be versatile like that, it's a 10.
I'm gonna give it a 9.6. 9.6. Good song. Self-reflection, ladies and gentlemen. Can't lose. Vin out.
Grace and peace. Sorry, out.
Gone.